Hello Earthlings and welcome back to my channel. Hello! I'm just popping in from another video. I'm filming another one right now, but I realized way too late in the game in this video that I kept messing up Richinson and Richins, and I do not know why. I don't know why, but I just realized I was, and I just came on here to say that every time I'm saying Richinsons, I'm saying Richins. It is Kouri and Eric Richins. I'm sorry, I'll do better next time. Kouri Richins was born on April 20th of 1990, where she would eventually marry Eric Richins, and then she would become a real estate agent and they would settle down in Kansas, Utah. In 2013, Kouri would sign a pre-marital agreement believing that she would inherit $3.5 million worth of property in the case of Eric's death. From 2015 to 2017, Kouri took out 4 different life insurance policies that summed up a total of $2 million without Eric's knowledge. Kouri's behavior would go unnoticed until September of 2020. Eric would figure out that Kouri had taken out a $250,000 home equity line of credit, $100,000 out of his bank accounts, $30,000 out of his credit cards, and $134,000 out of his businesses that were supposed to be used to pay the taxes. When he found out, he did confront Kouri, and Kouri did promise to pay it back, but I feel like for the most of us, and this is a side point, for the most of us, if you found out that your partner or if anybody had taken out over $500,000 from you, I don't think that you would expect it back. And I don't think that Eric thought so either, because he would eventually go in October of 2020 to a divorce lawyer and a estate planner behind Kouri's back and develop and create a trust called the Eric Richins Living Trust. And in November that same year, he would go and he would change the beneficiary from Kouri to his sister, Katie Richins Benson. In January of 2022, Eric had a policy that he shared with one of his business partners, and I don't really know how that works, but he had a policy with his business partner, and Kouri took it upon herself to actually make herself the beneficiary of that policy. They were notified. The business partner and Eric were both notified about her changing the policy to make her the beneficiary, and they immediately changed it back as soon as she did it. Kouri Richins would then buy 15 to 30 fentanyl pills from a person in Heber City, costing $900 on February 11th of 2022. On Valentine's Day that same year, which is 3 days later, the Richins decided to stay in, and Kouri made Eric a sandwich, and Eric would eventually break out in hives that same night, and he would actually tell somebody that he did feel like his wife was poisoning him. On February 26th, she buys the same amount of pills for the same amount of money from the same person that she bought from the original time. On March 4th of 2022, police would be called to the Richins household, where they would discover an unconscious Eric Richins laying on the foot of the bed, and after several attempts to revive him, he was declared dead at the scene. While they were interviewing Kouri would say that they were celebrating her closing a $2 million house the day before. So she made a Moscow Mule in the kitchen and took it up to Eric in the room that they shared together. But because one of their kids was suffering from night terrors, she decided that she was going to spend the night with them. She said she woke up around 3 a.m., realized that she was in their son's room, and she would walk into their room, where she found the room that she shared with her husband. Then she would find her husband unresponsive and cold to the touch, and this is when she would call 911. An autopsy would determine that Eric Richinson died from an overdose. They found 5 times the lethal amount of fentanyl in his system, and they discovered that it was ingested orally. Nearly a year after the death of her husband, Kouri Richins would write a book called Are You With Me? And in the book, it is about a father who has wings that looks over his 3 sons after his departure, and it's supposed to roughly she did create it for her sons to help her sons grieve with the death of her husband, but it is a children's book about the death of anybody, the death of any loved one, and how to go through and process grief as a child. And it has a great message to it. It just kind of sucks, it just sucks that it was created off of allegedly her poisoning her own husband and giving her children this grief of having to grow up without their father out of the hands of her own greed, allegedly. So, you know, Prior to the book being released, though, she did hire a locksmith to come in and try to unlock a safe that Eric had that allegedly contained roughly about $125,000 to $165,000. And when his sister informed him that she had no authority to do so, Kouri became enraged and punched her in the face and the neck, allegedly. During the police investigation, police are discovering a couple of things. They're discovering the Valentine's Day alleged attempt of poisoning him, where he grew out in hives and he told people that he felt like he was being poisoned by his wife. Then they found text between her and somebody else. They're communicating about the illicit distribution of fentanyl pills. And lastly, I think, and the most darning of all evidence, is the fact that during the time of Eric's death, the only people that were in the household were her children, Eric, and Kouri herself. Kouri Richins was arrested on May 8th of 2023, and she was charged with first-degree aggravated murder and second-degree possession of controlled substance with intent to distribute. Kouri's lawyer states that the prosecution does not have enough substantial evidence to produce, and that as she awaits trial, Kouri should be set free. Prosecution states that Kouri's internet searches are enough to be found incriminating. Some of her internet searches included fentanyl, life insurance policies, police investigations, house data collected on electronic devices, and cops forced a lie detector test, luxury prisons in America, death insurance saying pending, will life insurance still pay? If someone is poisoned, what will it go on the death certificate as? And lastly, how to permanently delete information off your iPhone. The prosecution argues that Kouri took out money without Eric's knowledge, and that she had life insurance policies on him without his knowledge. And lastly, Eric himself expressing to people that he felt like he was being poisoned by his own wife. They used all this to deem their charge as incriminating. This was enough evidence to incriminate her for these charges that they were charging her for. And now the rebuttal. So Kouri's lawyers state that she did have the right to take out the money because they were married. Prosecution also used the attempt to change herself as the sole beneficiary to a life insurance policy that he had with a whole nother person. In the rebuttal, they claim that the prosecution did not have enough evidence to actually identify the computer from which the login was initiated from when it came down to changing the attempt to change the life insurance policy. And they state that she did in fact not attempt to ever poison Eric. The prosecution also brought up the series of texts that Kouri had with a person soliciting fentanyl pills. And it came down to the fact that they figured out that the last delivery was 6 days prior to the death of Eric. Kouri's lawyers state that there's actually no proof, though, that Kouri in fact gave Eric the lethal dose that killed him. Kouri's lawyer states that law enforcement never found any illicit drugs during their search, nor provided any evidence that Kouri herself had given the fentanyl to Eric. Her lawyers took it a step further by stating that he was a drug addict, essentially, and he was a partier, and he liked to have a good time, and he liked to consume THC. The prosecution did not want the narrative that Eric died from an overdose to be put out there, and they made it very clear that Eric did not do any drugs, nor did he abuse any controlled substances. The Richins had a housekeeper named Carmen Marie, and she was also a convicted drug dealer who was connected to the text messages that Kouri had been sending to that unknown person soliciting the fentanyl drugs. In 2021, Carmen was arrested for multiple drug charges, including possession with intent to distribute. Carmen would eventually take a plea, and she would attend drug court. Carmen would break some of her rules that she had in place for drug court, so she would end up back in jail. In jail, during her interview, Carmen would admit to selling 15 to 30 fentanyl pills on 2 separate occasions to Kouri, about the first time being about a month before the actual death of Eric. Each time was $900, and Carmen was very detailed about the drop-off and pickup locations, and she showed messages between them. And when Carmen was released from jail on May 17th for her drug court, violations, She was barred from ever talking and contacting certain people, and one of them is Kouri Richins. She has not, though, been charged in the death of Eric Richins. An attorney who consoled Eric and his estate planning said that he had come in and he had made some few strange requests prior to his death. Some of the weird things were that if he ever needed a person, like a healthcare agent, which is somebody that if you are I think comatose or something happens to you and you need medical attention and you can't physically be the one to give it because you're in that predicament, that he did not want Kouri to be that designated person if he ever needed one. Another thing is that he wanted Kouri and the kids to be taken care of if something ever happened to him, except he did not want Kouri to be in charge of the finances. He appointed his father and his sister the beneficiaries. The same estate planner had to be the one to tell Kouri the next day after she came in to read the will or whatever it was, that she actually was not appointed the beneficiary of the trust. And apparently Kouri got so enraged that the estate planner believed that this was actually the first time she was learning that she wasn't getting any control of any of the money. Eric also believed that Kouri was having an affair. He is said to believe that he had concerns previously and that he believed that she was having a relationship and it was continuing within their marriage and even in person. And even though he was going through all of this and he did feel like his wife was going to hurt him and harm him and that she was allegedly in an affair, the reason why he stayed, it was because for his sons. He said he did not want his sons to grow up in a broken home, so he stayed. As the investigation went on, police looked into the $2 million house that Kouri closed on that she states that they were celebrating the night of Eric's death. Comes to find out, Eric refused to pay that amount of money for that house, and 2 weeks after the death of Eric, Kouri herself put the house back on the market for $5 million. The prosecution also claims that some of Eric's documents were allegedly forged. They even brought in a forensic examiner who looked over 3 specific documents that had to do with life insurance policies, and they found out that they were in fact a forgery. And in the case of this particular forgery, they said that basically what this person tries to do is they try to copy the characteristics that somebody has in order to make the signature kind of pass off as theirs. The technical term for that is called a stimulated forgery. As of right now, Kouri Richins remains in jail due to the fact that the judge denied her bail. She also is not going to be facing the death penalty. They're not going to be pursuing that, but what she will face if convicted is going to be 25 years to life. If so, at this point right now, they are still going back and forth through the court case, and if there's anything else that pops up, I will pop up here and I will let you guys know. Until next time, be safe, Earthlings. Peace out.